Hey, what's up, everybody? Good evening. Welcome to this evening's broadcast, which is secular Serenity. So it's an atheistic or secular perspective on the 12 steps. I'm going to do my best to run the show by myself, and we can have a conversation if you want. I've posted the links to the broadcast in the comments. We're broadcasting on the live channels as per usual. So we're broadcasting on the MyRehab Helper Facebook profile, the ARC or the MyRehab Facebook page, the Duly Diagnosed YouTube channel, and those are the public channels. Excuse me. And we're also broadcasting on the MyRehab Cafe private and unsearchable Facebook group. So anybody on that channel, on the private group, if you guys want a higher degree of anonymity, please wait until the first 10 or 20 minutes are up, where I'll switch over exclusively to the MyRehab Cafe group, and we'll broadcast there until the end of the video. Yeah, so if you want to hop on again with a higher degree of anonymity, do so once I've switched over. If you're on the public channels and you guys want to participate, please hop on via the link that I've posted in the comments. Alternatively, you can post a comment and it should come up on my screen. I should be able to post that, and you guys can participate by asking questions or making statements or whatever it is. So I did a bit of sort of some research and because I obviously had to find a topic for this evening. And I came across an interesting question, which I thought was quite appropriate. So the question that's someone asked on it's an app called Quora, Quar. Wait, let me just take a look at this. Yeah, Quora. So it's like a it's an interesting app. It's got a lot of questions that people ask, and people interact and ask each other questions and give answers and so on and so forth. So check that out if you can. So the question is, if people in 12-step programs can recover by replacing surrender to God with surrender to a higher purpose, does it follow that surrender is more integral to recovery than a relationship with God, or with a relationship with God of your understanding, or you know, if you believe that there's a God? So I thought that was an interesting question, and especially from a secular perspective or an atheist perspective, because as an atheist, I personally don't believe in a God, I think I've a lot of 12, obviously the 12 steps make reference to the word God over and over and over again. It doesn't matter really which fellowship it is, if it's an AA fellowship or NA fellowship, and save for the secular fellowships, maybe like the Buddhist ones. I forget what they're called, but So yeah, the question again, if people in 12-step programs can recover by replacing surrender to God, and I think he's referring to people in secular 12-step programs. So if they can by replacing surrender to God with surrender to a higher purpose, does it follow that surrender is more integral to recovery than a relationship with God? So I suppose the question would be, there's a couple of questions that come to mind for me. Number one, higher purpose. So, I mean, if you've got a sort of nihilistic outlook, I suppose higher purpose wouldn't really make sense. But I'm going to sort of attack this from the perspective of somebody that might sort of have an existentialist kind of viewpoint. And and let's assume that one can have a higher purpose, right? And what a higher purpose means, I mean, it could mean sort of adding value to your community, I suppose, or being a good parent, or being a good partner, or husband, or wife. So a higher purpose, I suppose, would imply a purpose that is not that sort of moves away from self-centeredness. So I suppose that's the way I would see it. So a purpose higher than one's own personal interests. So if I'm going to surrender, and maybe an ideal, I suppose ideals and values and things like that. So surrender to a higher purpose. Let's just sort of, for the sake of an example, surrender to a higher purpose being, I want to be a better parent. Does it follow that surrender is more integral to recovery than a relationship with God? So, again, what does the word God mean? I suppose that would be the next question. Some people. So actually, I had a really good example. Let me just quickly look for it. Let's see. Let me just search the word ideals. So, so I mean, somebody mentioned. Let me just see here. You don't know how much value. So so ideals, values, principles. I suppose in my mind, if I had to give a definition to the word God, I would use the definition, the movement towards a set of values and ideals, and away from sort of principles or values that would be harmful. Okay, so that's I'll try and keep it like as simple as possible, because when I start sort of thinking of esoteric sort of ideas and of what God could be or whatever, I hit blanks. So it's difficult for me. But yeah, the movement towards an ideal and an ideal well-being, okay, and the movement away from sort of unhealthy behaviors and things like that. Okay, so a higher purpose would include that definition, I would say. A higher purpose is the movement away towards ideals, an ideal at least. And I suppose the question, does it follow that surrender is more integral to recovery than a relationship with God? And I would say surrender to the ideals, you could sort of see that as a relationship with God, if you buy into the definition that I've just put forward. If we have to think about the word surrender as well, what exactly are we surrendering? And from a 12-step perspective, we're surrendering our will, and our lives, right? That's what it says in step 3. Let me actually see what I had a cool secular version of this 12 steps. There we go. Step 3, made a decision to entrust our will and our lives of the collective wisdom and resources of those who have searched before us. So that's a version. It's not the version held by AA Agnostica or whatever, but all our lives. And a lot of people translate the words will with the word thoughts, and lives with the word actions. Okay, so So if we're going to surrender our thoughts and our actions to the ideal, I mean, think about it this way, right? If you want to get healthy, okay, if you want to go to the gym, sort of like get stronger, maybe look better, look healthier, or feel healthier, you're gonna wake up at 5 in the morning, right? Which is generally a good time to go to gym. It's nice and quiet. It's early in the morning. Like getting up early is always a good thing. You're gonna wake up at 5, and the thought might be, geez, I don't know if I feel like it. I feel like sleeping in, right? So those are some of the thoughts that might go through our mind. And if we're going to surrender to the ideal, and the ideal being, having a healthier body, for example, then we're gonna sort of get up anyway. Our actions are gonna sort of show something different to what it is that we're thinking. So somebody answered the question on the channel, on Quora, and he gave quite a long, detailed. I'll give it a read, and we can go through it. Again, guys, if you guys want to hop on, please do so. It would be cool to have some company. I don't dig doing these things by myself, but if you're not keen, I'll do it anyway. Or at least post a comment. Tell me what your thoughts are. So again, the question: if people in 12-step programs can recover by replacing surrender to God with surrender to a higher purpose, does it follow that surrender is more integral to recovery than a relationship with God? I think it's a weird question because, if you're an atheist and you're going to sort of look for a more practical, pragmatic sort of a definition of the word God, a higher purpose, higher purpose can be considered God. If you buy into the definition that, higher purpose is the movement towards sets of ideals and principles. So, I mean, you would, in that way, you'd always be surrendering to God, if that makes sense. But anyway, here's the answer this guy gave. No, mainly because there are very few of the people who try the 12-step programs and are helped by them. A very small percentage of those who walk through the doors find any kind of lasting recovery. I think, that might be true. I know there's been a couple of studies done, but none of them are like really definitive in that the 12 steps are sort of like a really like a good means of or have good high success rates. Let's put it that way. So he references a guy called Lance Dodds, surveyed the scientific literature on AA and found that the helpful part of AA, the thing that worked for some people, was actually having a support group. It wasn't to do with the 12 steps themselves. I have to disagree with that. I think, 12 steps are a set of principles and ideals that one can work towards and move towards. And those ideals and principles embody the movement. Well, they embody well-being. And if we're working those steps and practicing them and sort of practicing those principles, we will move in the direction of well-being and away from things like destructive behaviors and modes of being, like being self-centered or, being dishonest, so on and so forth. So the thing that worked for some people is actually having a support group. And listen, having a support group is important. The opposite, again, I keep saying it, the opposite of opposite of addiction is connection. So, and that's certainly true for me. I know that interacting with other people that are working on themselves and are working on moving towards a place of well-being is helpful for me. Reinforces the whole thing, being in contact with people that are on the same mission, right? So he goes on to say, and the fact that people are encouraged to believe that they are powerless over alcohol, surrender, as you put it in brackets, may actually be bad for them. AA members have been shown in studies to relapse more frequently and more seriously than those in other treatment modalities or with no treatment at all. I can imagine that being possibly being like true to an extent. I mean, you go into AA or any of the fellowships, and you are told, that you're powerless, and that if you pick up a drink, like that, was very, very true for a lot of people. But I've also seen a lot of people that are at sort of like a different stages of substance use disorder, if I can put it that way. And they don't necessarily need to be sort of indoctrinated to that degree, that extreme degree. If you catch it early, I believe that the best sort of thing for a person would be abstinence. That's just my personal opinion, and I think abstinence is a healthy way of living, and it's at least a good foundation for the movement towards well-being. So yeah, that's one of the answers. Another guy answered with, it really depends on the person. The 12 steps does not work exactly the same way for everyone. As an atheist, surrender for me is more important. I do not need to surrender it to anyone or anything. I put trust in the program and the set of tools of recovery. So, I mean, that's a bit of a contradictory statement. I think he is then surrendering to something. I know for others, their relationship with their God is the foundation of their recovery. And that's a good point, yeah. Another guy answered with, the original AA grew out of the Oxford group, a Christian evangelical movement with deep roots in Catholicism. The closer you stay to Catholicism and the sacraments, the better the 12 steps work. The further you get from them, the less power it has to help you overcome addiction. The basic message is that we alone are powerless against addiction and that we need God, Christ, or a higher power. As AA has gotten further divorced from traditional Christianity or Catholicism and substituted the higher power for God, the worse it gets. I don't agree with that. Again, I think, as with any religion, it's really about owning a set of values and principles, and moving towards those values and principles in the name of being. So I have to disagree with that. I don't believe that one would have to believe in a sort of like fundamentalist version of God or Jesus or whatever. I think you can distill all that out. Once you do that, you're left with a set of principles and values. AA works, and it works equally well for. Okay, this is another answer to the question. AA works, and it works equally well for Buddhists who believe no deity but do believe in karma. For Taoists who believe in no deity but do believe in a form of fate. For Native American spiritualists who believe in a non-personified spirit of nature. It has on occasion for people who design their own higher power, but those seem to be rare. I disagree with that. Just people have strange outlooks. Well, at least from my perspective, I don't agree with a lot of these comments. But anyway, I hope this is helping anybody that wants to consider a secular understanding or take of on the 12 steps. I know for me, especially when I was first introduced to the 12 steps and I heard the word God, I was very upset. I thought I'd been conned, I must be honest. And I was actually introduced to the idea when I went to a treatment center many years ago. And yeah, they used the word God, and I was very upset. And then they said, no, don't stress about it. Your God, you can conceptualize your own idea of God. It can be the doorknob or the tree in the backyard, and that worried me even more, to be honest, because I think that that didn't make any sense either. But since then, I've sort of come to this conclusion that it's really about just having a set of values and principles that embody the movement towards well-being, and practicing those principles as far as possible. A lot of people believe that you've got to be honest to a fault, or selfless to a fault, if I could put it that way. But I don't believe going to like extremes is necessary, and it also doesn't make sense to me either. I mean, if you think about the guys that were in imagine being in Nazi Germany, and you've got a Jewish family hiding under the floorboards, and the Nazi comes along and knocks on the door and says, hey, you're hiding anyone in your house? Are you going to be honest about that and put yourself and your family and the family that you're hiding at risk? So obviously there's limits to how one should practice these principles. So that I don't believe them to be universal truths either, to be honest. That's just my own take on it. And I'm hoping somebody watching will hop on and join me. But we've actually reached the limit on the public channels, which is a blessing for me. The less people watching, the better when I'm doing these things alone. But thank you to anybody that has watched on the public channels. And if you guys want to find out more about the MyRehab Cafe, which we're going to be switching over to now, you can go to www.myrehabcafe.com or myrehabcafe.co.za. And there'll be some more information on how you can join. If you've participated in an ARC inpatient program or a MyRehab inpatient program, there's no charge for you guys joining the MyRehab Cafe. It's free, so you can actually send me a WhatsApp message. I'm going to put my number up now, and I'll add you to the group, and you can participate in the workshops and lectures and have access to the worksheets and so on via that channel. Just also want to put it out there that ARC or MyRehab does not we don't come from the perspective of any particular religion or lack of religion or any kind of philosophy, other than it's MyRehab or ARC it's a medical facility, right? So we do things from an evidence-based perspective, and the MyRehab Cafe initiative is really the aftercare arm of all of that, where we have different people running different channels, if I can put it that way. We've got Megan doing a Christian perspective on the 12 steps. I do the secular one. We've got Bobby, who does deprogramming from AA and other things. He gives a lot his broadcast, Jerry, give a lot of options in terms of other modalities for staying engaged in the process of recovery. We've got Lorio, who does interpersonal dynamics and interpersonal relationships and dynamics in recovery. So she does that workshop every Tuesday. Up and down, she's been doing it with me, but she's going to be taking that on her own going forward. And we've got Chris, who does relapse. He's a counseling psychologist as well. He does relapse excuse me relapse prevention on a Thursday afternoon. We've got the ARC or the MyRehab inpatient volunteer program, where people on the MyRehab Cafe get to share their strength, hope, and experience with people that are in the facility on a Wednesday. And then Theo does I haven't quite discussed exactly what it is that he's going to be doing, but there's definitely an interesting perspective that Theo has. He's going to be doing that on a Thursday evening. So check all of that out, guys, and sign up for the MyRehab Cafe. It's really cool. A lot of interaction. and we're definitely trying to motivate everybody on there to interact with each other and work towards well-being as stated before. So cool. Thanks very much for watching. I'm going to switch over. Where is it? There we go. I'm going to switch over now. Thanks. Cheers, guys.